Hello, everyone. Welcome to the PharmAla Biotech Planning Psychedelic Trials webinar. We're going to be talking today about how you navigate the import-export process and get your controlled substances so you can run your psychedelic clinical trial. Next slide, please, David. My name is Nick Kadish. I'm the founding CEO of PharmAla Biotech. PharmAla is the first publicly traded company to manufacture GMP clinical grade MDMA for use in clinical trials. We're currently supporting clinical trials on a number of different continents. And with our partners from MindSet Pharma, ably represented here today by James Lanthier, the CEO. James, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining.
MindSet manufactures GMP Psilocybin, which we are very, very proud to sell to the world. That makes our combined organization the first organization able to offer two different clinical grade APIs and drug products to researchers all over the planet. And with us today as well is David Purcell. Say hello, David.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody.
David will be the one to take your orders at the end of this call. And if you call now, he'll throw in a set of steak knives.
There it is.
We get that. So PharmAla is an MDMA company. We basically do two things. As I said earlier, we're the first and only established manufacturer of GMP MDMA in the world, other than MAPS. A lot of folks say that they can make MDMA, and that's probably true. I believe as of right now, we're the only ones who've actually made GMP MDMA other than MAPS, and certainly the only ones who are retailing it to a multitude of clients. PharmAla was founded in the belief that MDMA and its analogs represent a monumental opportunity for the treatment of a number of conditions, mostly mental health conditions, including PTSD and social anxiety disorders. And we also develop our own analogs of MDMA, which we are taking through the clinical trial process, meaning that not only are we expert in manufacturing, but we know what it's like to do clinical trials. We, because we're doing our own, we understand the challenges inherent in that, and the things that you as clinical researchers are going through, which is why we've been so successful in helping clinicians set up their own trials, get their drug product in, run their trials, execute, publish. Can we get the next slide, please? James, do you want to talk about MindSet a little bit?
Sure, thanks, Nick. So MindSet is about a 3-year-old biotechnology company. We have been focused since our inception squarely on discovering and developing what we describe as next generation psychedelic medications. We're trying to create novel medications that really make up for and optimize for some of the shortcomings in first generation drugs like psilocybin. We were really one of the first companies to focus on this goal, and that allowed us to achieve a really strong IP position. And on the back of that, we've run a really comprehensive drug screening program. And on the back of that, I've been the first company to form a big pharma collaboration in the novel psychedelic medical space with the development arm of Otsuka Pharmaceuticals. Along the way, as our scientific team has been busy inventing new drugs, one of our scientific co-founders, Dr. Malik Slassi, was immersed himself in the literature around psilocybin and psilocybin synthesis, and invented a novel synthesis process to be able to synthesize psilocybin. So this is not our focus as a company, really is on our novel drug programs, but we've been of the view that this process had real value to the overall broader space, to MindSet as well, but to the overall broader space. Obviously, access to high quality psilocybin is important for the development of our overall space and research, and that's why we've partnered with PharmAla given their strength in drug distribution, which is really complementary to our focus on novel drugs.
Thanks, James. So let's talk a little bit about MDMA first, and we'll turn to psilocybin. So I think if you're watching this webinar, you're probably well aware that MDMA is the furthest along of the sort of broader psychedelic class of drugs. It has now been through 2 phase 3 clinical trials, all sponsored by MAPS, of which we at PharmAla are very big fans. MDMA is also under evaluation as a potential treatment for a whole range of disorders: eating disorders, alcohol addiction, anxiety, and depression. We are supporting some of those trials with our GMP materials. PharmAla has a sort of broad range of capabilities if you are examining trials in this space. Of course, we're able to formulate drug product. Our standard formulation is a 40 milligram hard shell capsule dose. It's a clinical trial capsule. We use 40 milligrams because it's a very scalable dose. So you can turn that into 80, you can turn that into 120. You can utilize that to execute the MAPS protocol for PTSD. You can use it to develop your own protocols as well. We are also able to formulate specific drug product on request, although of course this comes with additional costs. We also have the capability to develop custom MDXX molecules based on specifications provided by clients. We've only had one client take us up on that so far, but happy to provide those services to others. And as you can see below, there's a wide range of patients for the indications just currently under discussion for MDMA and currently being researched. Of course, PTSD, but our belief at PharmAla is that MDMA is an excellent drug of choice for the treatment of any fear disorders, including, of course, PTSD and social anxiety, but also, a number of indications that haven't been looked at yet, including phobias. We also have a significant interest in looking at specific subpopulations of concern. Specifically, I think it's fairly well known, we're looking at the autistic subpopulation, a subpopulation that suffers quite extensively from social anxiety. And then, James, do you want to talk a little bit about the potential marketplace for psilocybin?
Sure, just very briefly, and this may be familiar to many of you, but psilocybin, I would say, is really the drug in second place behind MDMA, but in the psychedelic race, but has really a tremendous amount of momentum behind it. So today, psilocybin is in phase 3 trials in North America and broadly speaking, Western Europe, for the treatment of treatment-resistant depression. And the data from those trials to date has been incredibly positive. But what's at least as if not more exciting are the range of related neuropsychiatric indications where there's at least some preliminary evidence similarly to MDMA, where there's some efficacy that's been shown in investigator-initiated studies for psilocybin, and that ranges from what you see here to to smoking cessation, weight loss, and really on and on and on. So there's a tremendous number of early stage trials and research going on right now to further explore the use of psilocybin in this range of different indications. One of the really, unfortunately, one of the holdups with the evolution of the space has been simply getting access to pharmaceutical grade psilocybin. There are lots of groups out there who will tell you that they can give you access to psilocybin, but relatively few who, it's a smaller subgroup of them who can actually deliver it on a timely basis, and a much smaller subgroup of that who can actually get you access to pharmaceutical grade psilocybin. MindSet, through an international CDMO, has synthesized a very large quantity of CGMP psilocybin, and with plans to synthesize more in in the near future. And again, that's why we've formed this collaboration with our partners at PharmAla to help us get the psilocybin into the hands of researchers who need it.
Thanks, James. That's perfect. And yeah, I'll double down on that point. I mean, we talk to customers every day who say, well, like, this guy says he can make me whatever I need. And of course, in this space, as everyone can imagine, talk is somewhat cheap. However, the reality is, if you're running a clinical trial, the important starting point here is regulatory compliance. And one of the reasons we love working with MindSet is they also have a very strong focus on regulatory compliance, doing things to pharmaceutical standards. And so, before you start the export process, you are going to have to submit for your clinical trial in whatever jurisdiction you operate in. And to do that, you're going to need a whole host of regulatory documentation pertaining to the manufacture of the drug that you intend to study, whether that be MDMA or psilocybin. So, step zero in this entire process is actually reaching out to David or myself and getting yourself a copy of our investigator's brochure and our technical specifications documents for your drug of choice. We have those available today that has all of the relevant information, including our certificates of analysis and our release information, all the CMC you need to get your clinical trial approved. And being an organization that does their own clinical trials, once again, we know what you need, we know how to help you. Timelines in this space are long, and we'll go through some of those timelines today. But I would really recommend to everyone, get started sooner rather than later. We have had on occasion people coming to us and say, my trial starts in a month and I need psilocybin or I need MDMA. And I'm afraid my answer is going to be, you're not starting your trial. If you've left it until your last minute to acquire drug product, it's not going to land in time, right? Because the import-export process is long and somewhat burdensome from a regulatory perspective. So let's just assume that you've gotten in touch early on, you've secured your supply of your drug of choice. What happens next? Well, once you've got your clinical trial approved, you're going to need to get an import permit, unless, of course, you're operating in Canada, in which case, good news, you can skip step one and go directly to step 4. Import permits are relatively easy to get if you've already got a clinical trial approved. Usually, there are lots of medical logistics companies that can help you with this. This is one of those steps that PharmAla can be helpful in, but we can't do for you. Because while we know the Canadian regulatory landscape and the American regulatory landscape incredibly well, I don't know where you're based, I don't know where you're going to do your study, and we can't really be expert everywhere. We can help you find some partners who are. You apply with your clinical trial application approved for your import permit. This will take anywhere between 1 and 3 months, usually in most competent jurisdictions. By that I mean, Japan, Europe, UK, Australia, North America. Then you get your import permit, send that to us. We apply for an export permit that's entirely within our purview. Export permit takes approximately a month, sometimes a little bit longer. And then we ship your goods to either your trial site or your importer of record. I know it doesn't sound very complicated, it's only 4 steps, but I will warn you, it takes time. At a bare minimum, it'll take between 2 and 3 months to go through this entire process. And so, for those folks who are sort of counting along at home, you really want to get started if you're doing a clinical trial this fall, you want to secure your materials now, today. Because also don't forget, while we have it in inventory, we need to prepare it for you, right? So really want to encourage everyone to get started early. David, can we get the next slide, please? So for those of you internationally, there's a few other nuances here that I just want to highlight for you. The EU is probably the most burdensome out of all the jurisdictions. EU requires an importer of record in addition to all the other things that we talked about today. Importer of record is a customs term. Basically, it's just an additional service provider. Most large pharmaceutical companies operate their own importer of records. Smaller ones may have to hire somebody outside of their organization. EU clinical trials also have to have a QP, a qualified person, release their material. This is something that we can absolutely assist with, but it is an additional charge for EU-based trials. We try to spread that around to make sure that no one trial gets hit with the full amount, but something to highlight. And finally, if you're in Australia, you will need an import permit both from the federal and from your state regulator. So David, do you want to talk about what we can offer these folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Nick. And as mentioned a little bit earlier, we do have product in inventory, both of the MDMA as well as the psilocybin side. So with MDMA, we have bulk clinical grade GMP MDMA available, as well as engineering grade materials available. We've also, as earlier mentioned, we've encapsulated our MDMA into 40 milligram doses, which again, matches well with both the MAPS protocol and some other protocols that maybe you may want to run as far as your study design. We also have MindSet's bulk psilocybin available in API, raw API format, both clinical and engineering graded there as well. And also with our psilocybin encapsulated at a 25 milligram dose, again, to sort of fit with what the typical dosing regimes are that we're seeing. We do, I do want to mention, and as Nick has alluded to, you know, our quantities, we do have quantities in inventory. However, you know, they are dwindling. We are moving quite a fair amount of products over the last few months, which is great. So, you know, if you are in need of product over the next number of months, we will be manufacturing more down the line, but you know, in order to secure product for your studies, if they should be happening in the next 6 to 9 months, I would encourage the researchers out there to get in touch with us, because, like I said, we are moving the product quite well over the last number of months. So, Nick, back to our FAQs.
Sure. So yeah, look, I'll just, again, I'll double down on David's point. We have been moving a significant amount of material. Just this morning, we announced we have just been issued the largest export permit in Canadian history for MDMA for 300 grams. This is very significant volumes. And so again, yes, if you are planning a clinical trial, please do not wait to secure your drug product until the last minute. Get your orders in relatively quickly. We do have to take a deposit if we're going to be manufacturing material for you. So as well, budget timelines, especially for academic researchers. If you're looking at a budget renewal in March or April, maybe better to get those deposits in on this fiscal year prior to the calendar rolling over. What details are required for an import-export permit? Look, your import permit will require whatever detail your local regulator requires. Generally speaking, all of the detail is there once your clinical trial gets approved. I don't anticipate you'll have any problems after that. For the export permit, all we really need is your import permit. You send us a hard copy of that, we'll take care of the rest. I think we've talked about how long permitting takes, but like I said, really build in, at the very least, bare minimum, like 2 to 3 months. Please do not ask us to move faster than that, because the reality is the timelines don't depend on us. They depend on the government. And, we had one client who really wanted to get stuff done for the first week of January. We're now in the third week of January, like we're 2 weeks delayed. That's for the major shipment that we just announced. And that's just because of Christmas. Like, the government doesn't work over Christmas. We can't make them. We've tried. So just please be mindful of the sort of government restrictions as well. Are there restrictions on what carriers can ship the product? Yes. Any carrier that ships a controlled substance out of Canada must have full traceability on the product. In point of fact, right now, Health Canada has actually begun writing the couriers into the export permits. So we are limited in what carriers can ship the product. Anticipate shipping costs of between $3,000 and $6,000, depending on where it's headed and any other necessities such as temperature monitoring. What licenses or certifications are required to receive the product? You need to be licensed to hold controlled substances in your jurisdiction. James, I think you'll confirm with me, but I know MDMA is a controlled substance in pretty much every country. I believe that applies to psilocybin as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So you look at whatever licenses or certifications are required in order to hold a clinical trial, hold controlled substances. We are happy to sell to more than just clinical trial customers. For those jurisdictions that allow for the holding, use, sale of these molecules through alternative regimes, like expanded access, special access, we are happy to provide for those legal purposes as well. You just need to meet those requirements. Environmental conditions. We ship all of our materials with temperature monitoring. It's all pretty much shelf stable, as long as it's packed with desiccant. So there are no special storage conditions at this time. And we do, of course, offer full stability testing for our products. And then what is an importer of record? It's a great question. You know, Shane, maybe I can ask you to jump in on what an importer of record is.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Obviously, it will change from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Certainly, most jurisdictions, such as, for example, the UK, will require an importer of record. Is technically a customs term, but some jurisdictions will link that customs term to the import permit, and will be a requirement for identifying that. As I think you indicated before, Nick, most large pharmaceutical companies will have this categorization, but for smaller operators and for clinical operators, most universities will also have it, but we've come across situations where they don't, and certainly we can work with partners in your jurisdiction to help you satisfy this requirement.
Okay. Thank you, Shane. I think now we'll move into a Q&A. If we have any, I know we have a couple of questions, but if we have any additional questions, please just type them into the Q&A chat and we'll try to get through them. Conway, do you want to read out the first question?
Absolutely. From Ian, we have, he just wants to confirm our psilocybin has been cleared by the FDA for human use.
So this is, I think, more on the mindset side, but my understanding is not for it has not been approved as a drug yet. So it's cleared for human use under an IND, which means investigational new drug, meaning it's a clinical trial drug. It is not available or legal for sale or prescription outside of the bounds of clinical trial, expanded access. I believe that they're looking at right to try now, but that hasn't been passed yet. James, anything in addition to that?
Well said.
Thanks. Next question.
From Samuel, how do you plan on raising money? Are you planning a PP in this price range, or do you have enough revenue coming in now to support day-to-day activity?
Well, this isn't an investor webinar, it's a product webinar, but in answer to your question, we have enough money to support our day-to-day activities. I'm speaking on behalf of PharmAla. I don't know whether that was directed to me or MindSet, but yeah, we're okay for now.
Nikki's asking, is this useful for groups in London?
Sure. I mean, the 300-gram announcement we made this morning, that export permit was for the UK. So we can, assuming you're talking about London, England, and not London, Ontario, we can actually ship to both. Not a problem. Do we have any other questions?
Now is the time.
Okay. And see, we have another.
Who should we?
Sorry,
Nick.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So following up, who should we contact to request the investigator brochure for psilocybin?
So all requests can go to David or myself. You have David's email right there on the screen, david@pharmala.ca, and we can get you the regulatory documentation relatively quickly. And honestly, I think that's kind of it on the process. If there are other questions, I'm happy to take them. But my parting thoughts are: there's a large number of trials that are looking at psilocybin and MDMA. These are popular molecules, and I anticipate that interest will only increase. I mean, we've seen already this year a significant amount of folks coming to us asking for materials for their trials. So if you are considering setting up a trial, please talk to us now. Get in early. Help us plan for the future, because the whole reason that both PharmAla and MindSet went down the track of manufacturing this material was to enable clinical research into all kinds of indications. We obviously believe in the potential for MDMA and psilocybin to treat these conditions. And so please help us by getting in touch now so we can make sure that you get the material you need to run your trial effectively and on your time frame.
And Nick, there's a couple of other questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Conway.
What are the jurisdictions that PharmAla is currently engaged to support?
We are currently supporting trials in North America, in Oceania, and in Europe. So I think those are the major jurisdictions for us right now.
Cool. And then one last one. Do you know if the regulations for smaller doses of psilocybin are the same for macro doses?
Correct there. Yes. I mean, ultimately, these are both controlled substances. It doesn't matter what the dose is. They are all regulated the same way. We can create doses of whatever you need, but you will still need all your regulatory approvals. And then I actually see another question here on when the brochure is available and what the pricing information is. So pricing is highly dependent on what you need and how much you need, when you need it. Please get in touch. Let us know your needs, and we can get you pricing information basically within 24 hours. But on pricing, it is highly dependent.
And then one from Angie. Are you in partnership with Osaka or looking to take at them as a potential distributor once there is a product on the market for prescription use?
James?
Sorry about that.
I assume that meant Otsuka.
Assuming the question had to do with Otsuka, MindSet's collaboration with Otsuka is not on psilocybin. It's on some novel psilocybin-like drugs, and is still at a preclinical stage.
Okay. Well, if that's all we have, thank you very, very much for your time and attention. Thank you for joining the webinar. Look forward to being in touch with you guys as you plan your clinical trials, and we look forward to supporting your trials with the investigational drug product. Thank you to my co-hosts here today, David Purcell, James Lanthier, Shane Morris, our COO, and Conway, who put all this together. Conway, thank you very much. If you would like to chat further, please don't hesitate to be in touch with myself or David. And we look forward to supplying you with psilocybin and MDMA.